Welcome to Behind Recapped YouTube channel. Experiencing the worst days in its history, the overconfident Russian army is ready to crumble. The Russian army is absolutely out of order if the problems in the army are not solved. Russia might also quickly be forced to withdraw absolutely from Ukraine. So how did the Russian Navy turn out to be like this? What's happening in Russia? To answer these questions, we need to take a closer appearance at the structure of the Russian army. First, let us test the to-be-had information. The Russian army has over 1 million energetic and a couple of million reserve employees. This makes Russia the second largest military strength inside the global. However, it has currently emerged as clear that the larger length of the Russian Navy does not make it a stronger army. It's very hard to manipulate this type of big wide variety of squaddies. There are numerous reasons for this. First, there are numerous mercenaries within the Russian Navy. There's constant tension between the mercenaries and the Russian Navy and the conscripted citizens. Mercenaries have many privileges. Mainly the Wagner Group, to which these soldiers belong, is one of the most essential establishments that deepen the crisis. The Wagner Group is certainly one of the largest businesses in Russia. Prigozhin, the top of the agency, had a deep effect on Russian politics. It really is why Wagner institution. Infantrymen do not listen to the orders of Russian commanders and cause many troubles within the military. Soldiers of the Wagner Group do not participate in any of the operations in risky regions. Those regions are meant by way of Russian infantrymen who were recruited with the aid of forced Russian infantrymen are very indignant with the commanders and the Wagner organization because of this state of affairs. Then again, most officials within the Russian army have not been paid for months, but the infantrymen of the Wagner organization constantly receive an excessive quantity of price. There is a disaster among the Russian officials and the infantrymen of the Wagner Group due to this trouble. Moreover, many of the soldiers within the Russian military come from different ethnic backgrounds. There are 22 self-reliant republics inside the Russian Federation. These areas are on the whole populated by minorities. Residents living in minority regions are forcibly recruited into the military. This situation causes the disaster in the Russian Navy to boom. Considered one of the largest problems in Russia is racism, as the Russian military brings together infantrymen of many special races. Racism rises to better levels. The anxiety among Russian commanders and infantrymen from minority areas is growing day by day. After this mindset of Russian commanders, many revolts started out in the Russian army. In particular, soldiers from Chechnya and Dagestan induced extremely good damage to the Russian army. Russia disregarded the commanders who couldn't suppress the Israelis. As a result of the dismissal of the commanders, the hierarchical order within the Russian army changed into severely broken. But those had been now not the principal issues in the Russian army. The Russian army struggling with a much bigger disaster. Russian infantrymen have commenced to give up and mess. After the circulate of the Russian infantrymen, the Kremlin turned into helpless. So why aren't Russian infantrymen surrendering? There are dozens of motives for the give up of Russian troops. However, one component is sure, it's miles, because of the great success of the Ukrainian military. Russian troops are suffering a heavy defeat in Ukraine. The demise toll inside the Russian Navy is near 100,000. Worry is developing amongst Russian soldiers. Due to these heavy losses, Russian squaddies don't believe they are able to win this warfare, so that they plan to quit this war by using surrendering, and the soldiers within the Russian Navy recognize that their lives aren't cared for. Russian squaddies are being sent to die. In Ukraine, Russian infantrymen are pronouncing, "We do not need to die for Putin," and your protesters in Russia are also supporting this rebel. Russian citizens are pronouncing that is Putin's warfare, not ours. The crisis inside the Russian army do not give up there, having suffered a primary defeat. In Ukraine, Russia has sent troops and militants from many different areas to the region. Artwork organizations that Russia has supported in Syria for years have been dispatched to Europe. Similarly, many militants from Afghanistan and Iran are combating on this region. None of these fighters have professional Navy schooling, that's why they can't behavior regular operations and coordinate in an expert manner. This disrupts the whole business enterprise of the Russian army. There are terrorist groups and mercenaries inside the Russian army at the equal time with so many one-of-a-kind corporations, and new hassle arises within the Russian army.